Radak is a very important rabbi. He's not usually mentioned in the same way that you hear about Rambam, Maimonides, or with Rashi, right? But Radak gives some very, very important testimony along with the testimony of Maimonides. And what does Radak tell us? Radak is the one who tells us that in his time, which I think is somewhere in the 1200s or so, in his time, by his time, nobody had rebuilt any houses of worship or any Gentile shrines over the ground where the temple stood. It took me a while to track this down, but I managed to do it. And so this is incredibly important because by the time of Radak, and Rambam, Maimonides, makes a very similar statement. By their time, the Dome of the Rock, that mosque, has been standing, in its current location for what, 500 years, something like that, 600 years. So, out of the very Talmudic tradition that a lot of Jewish people are using to say that the temple is located under the Al-Aqsa Mosque, some of the leading rabbis from that tradition are saying, no. They did not build a Gentile shrine. They did not build a church. They did not build a mosque over where the temple stood. So that fact alone should totally discredit the idea that the Dome of the Rock sits on where the temple stood. We're either going to believe some of the greatest rabbis of the Jewish tradition, or we're going to agree people who are coming 400 or 500 years later and conveniently forgetting those parts of that tradition that they're not comfortable with. And so even when dealing with the Jewish tradition about the Temple Mount, it's not as uniform as people think. Okay.